Hey, welcome back to your behavior code. In this video, we're going to talk about something that happens so slowly you never notice it. How a story you told yourself, maybe to protect yourself, maybe to explain something, maybe just to get through a difficult moment, gradually became something you can no longer question, because your brain stopped treating it as a story and started treating it as the truth. So sit back, because this one is going to make you question things you've believed about yourself for years. And if you're new here, subscribe and hit that like button. It genuinely helps more than you think. Think of something you believe about yourself. Maybe it's that you're not good with people. Maybe it's that you're bad with money. Maybe it's that you're not the creative type, or the ambitious type, or the type that things work out for. Now here's the question. When did you decide that? Not when did you first hear it, when did you decide it was true? Because here's what the science shows, and this is the part that should unsettle you. Most of the things you believe about yourself were never decided at all. They were repeated over and over until your brain couldn't tell the difference between a story and a fact. And by the time that happens, the lie doesn't feel like a lie anymore. It feels like you. Think about the last time something went wrong. A relationship that ended. A job you didn't get, a moment where you fell short of something you wanted, and after, you told yourself a story about why it happened. I always mess things up. I'm just not that kind of person. This always happens to me. You said it once, then again, maybe to a friend, maybe just lying awake at 2 a.m. And then something started to happen that you didn't notice. The story stopped being something that happened. It became something you are. The human brain is not a camera. It is a storytelling machine. It takes fragments, emotions, half-memories, other people's reactions, and builds a narrative that feels like the only possible truth. And the more you tell that narrative, the more solid it becomes. Not because it's accurate, because it's familiar. Here's the mechanism your brain uses, and once you understand it, you will see it everywhere. It's called the illusory truth effect. In 1977, researchers ran a simple experiment. They showed participants a list of statements, some true, some false. Weeks later, they showed them the same statements again, and they found something that changed how we understand human belief. The statements that had been repeated, even the false ones, were rated as significantly more true than new ones, not because any new evidence appeared, simply because they had been encountered before. Your brain uses familiarity as a proxy for truth. If something feels familiar, if it feels like something you've heard before, thought before, said before, your brain processes it as more likely to be real. This is not a flaw. For most of human history, familiar things were safe things. Familiarity was a reasonable shortcut to trust, but it means that every time you repeat a negative story about yourself, every time you think it, say it, or confirm it in how you behave, you are making it more true in your brain's own internal reality. And then comes the second mechanism, even more disturbing. It's called memory reconsolidation. Every time you recall a memory, you don't just retrieve it, you rebuild it. And in the rebuilding, your current beliefs, your current emotional state, and the story you've been telling act as an editor, subtly reshaping what you remember to fit the narrative you already hold. This means that the more you believe you are someone who always fails, the more your brain will remember your past through that lens, selectively highlighting the failures, quietly softening the successes, until your entire history seems to confirm the story. The lie didn't just change how you see the future, it rewrote the past. Now here's where it stops being science and starts being something you need to hear. The stories that become beliefs the fastest are not the neutral ones. They are the ones attached to the strongest emotions: fear, shame, humiliation, rejection. Your brain has a negativity bias. It assigns more weight and more repetition to negative experiences than positive ones. A mistake that hurts you once is worth remembering forever. A success fades much faster, which means the lies that take root the deepest are almost always the painful ones. I am not enough. I ruin things. I don't deserve good things. These are not conclusions. They are stories told in moments of pain, repeated in moments of doubt, and slowly filed under fact. Once a belief is established, your brain begins filtering reality through it. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. You unconsciously notice evidence that supports what you already believe and ignore everything that contradicts it. Someone compliments your work. You dismiss it. Someone criticizes you. You file it immediately. See, I knew it. The belief protects itself, and it becomes stronger every day, not because it's true, but because your brain is working to confirm it. Psychologists call what this creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. The story shapes your behavior. Your behavior creates the outcomes the story predicted. You believe you always fail, so you stop trying as hard, so you fail more. So the belief gets stronger. The lie didn't just change what you think, it changed what is real. Here's the reframe that changes everything. If repetition is what turned the lie into a belief, then repetition is also what can undo it. But here's where most people get this wrong. They try to replace the lie with the opposite statement, I am not a failure, instead of I am a failure. And it doesn't work, because your brain doesn't accept a direct contradiction of a deeply held belief. It rejects it. It finds the evidence against it. It feels fake. What works is something more subtle and far more powerful. It's called narrative therapy. And it doesn't ask you to believe something new. It asks you to question whether the old story was ever the only possible interpretation. Not, I am not a failure, but, is I always fail actually the complete story? Or is it one interpretation of a fragment of events, told at a moment of pain, repeated until it felt inevitable? Because here's what the research on memory and identity consistently shows. There is no single true version of who you are. There are only the stories you've told, the ones that stuck, and the ones that were never given a chance to form. The person you believe yourself to be is not a discovery. It is a construction, built from repetition, emotion, and the narratives that were available to you at the time, which means it can be rebuilt, not by pretending, not by affirmations you don't believe, but by genuinely asking, for the first time, whether the story you've been living inside was ever really true to begin with. So what do you actually do with this? First, identify the story, not the emotion, not the event, the actual sentence your brain runs on repeat. Write it down. Seeing it outside your own head is the first step to seeing it as a story rather than a fact. Second, trace it back to its first telling. When did you first say this? What were you surviving in that moment? You will almost always find the story made sense once in a specific, painful context. It was never meant to be a permanent identity. Third, find the counter evidence your brain has been filtering out, not to prove the story wrong, just to make it incomplete. An incomplete story loses its power to be the only explanation. You are not the lie you repeated until it felt true. You are also every moment that didn't fit the story, every time you succeeded and dismissed it, every time you were kind, capable, enough, and your brain quietly filed it away under irrelevant. The truth was always more complicated than the story. And now, for the first time, you know why. If this made you question a story you've been telling yourself for years, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you want to understand the next hidden pattern quietly running your life, that video is already waiting.